This is a follow-up video to ratio where I ended with practice problems, and I want to now give you the answer to those practice problems and show how to work each one out. So if you answered the first problem C, the second B, the third problem had two parts. The first question was 1 to 3, and the second question 1 to 4. And the last problem, the first question was 3 to 12, and you could have reduced that to 1 to 4, but you didn't have to. So either answer is right. And the last part was the ratio 12 to 15, or if you had reduced that, 4 to 5. So let's look at each one of these problems. The first one said, which is not equivalent to the ratio 60 to 80. So here I've written 60 to 80 as a fraction, and since there's no 60 to 80 in the answer choices, I'm going to have to reduce to find one of these answers. And I see here that there's a 6 and 8, and that gives me a clue that if I divide both of these numbers by 10, 10 would go into 60 6 times, and 10 would go into 80 8 times. So that would be an equivalent ratio, 6 to 8. So the answer A is correct. But I'm looking for an answer that is not equal to the ratio. So it's probably going to be D, because these numbers are in the wrong order. If I had 60 apples, when I reduce that amount, it would reduce to 6. I couldn't change that to 8. That would give you the wrong ideal of how many I had. So the numbers have to stay in the same order when you reduce them. The top number has to stay first. The bottom number has to stay second when you write them as a fraction or with a colon. So let's try to reduce by another amount to get 3 to 4. If reading this problem, you would think that was probably a correct answer. They wouldn't have put it on there twice if it wasn't. You couldn't pick which one answer is not equal if these two are the same. But let's see how they got the 3 to 4. If we had divided to reduce 60 and 80, if we had chosen to use the largest number I can think of, which would be 20, then 60 would go into 20, the other way around. 20 would go into 60, 20, 40, 60. That would be 3 times. And 20 into 80, 20, 40, 60, 80. That would be 4 times. That's how they got the answer 3 to 4. So both of these answers are also correct. So the one that is not equal is D. Here it says Speedy Car Sales has 21 new cars and 15 used cars on its lot. What is the ratio of used cars to new cars? So we had to put this in order of used cars first, and the used cars were 15 and new cars were 21. So I wrote that ratio as a fraction. Now I have to see that's not anywhere, but I do have two answers that both say 21 to 15. But since they're written in the wrong order, they're not the correct answer. So I'm either looking for answer A or B. So let's see what I could divide by to reduce those. 3 will go into both of those numbers. So 3 into 15 would go 5 times, and 3 into 21 would go 7. So 5 to 7, answer B would be correct. For every 3 new tomato plants that grew at Green's garden, 1 failed to grow. What was the ratio of failed plants to successful plants? So I made a note over here that I had 3 new plants grew for every 1 that failed. So the ratio of failed plants, that would be 1, to successful plants, that would be the 3 that grew. Now the next question says, what was the ratio of plants that failed to the total number of plants? So if I had 3 that grew and 1 that failed, I would have a total of 4. So the plants that failed, 1, to the total, 4, 4 to 1 would be the ratio. And in this last question, on a math test, Oliver got 12 problems right and 3 problems wrong. What was the ratio of incorrect answers to correct answers? So I made a note that I had 12 right and 3 wrong. And if I need to make a ratio of incorrect answers, that was the number I had wrong, to correct answers, the number I had right, that would be 3 to 12. But both of those numbers can be divided by 3. So I could reduce that by saying 3 goes into 3, 1, and 3 goes into 12, 4 times. So 4 over 1, or 4 to 1, would also be an answer choice. The last question says, what is the ratio of correct problems? Correct problems was 12 to the total number of problems. So 3 wrong and 12 right would give a total of 15. So 12 to 15 would be the ratio of correct problems to total problems. And if we reduce that, 3 would go into both of those numbers. 3 into 12 goes 4, and 3 into 15, 5. So 4 to 5 would also be a correct answer. So any of the, you could give the answer as reduced or not reduced, since I didn't specify which one in the problem that I wanted a preference for one or the other. So both of those would be correct. I hope these problems helped you dive more into your thinking about ratios. And in the next video, I'll be talking about how to use ratios to write proportion problems that you might appear on the GED test.